Well, everybody, thank you, Tom. My man, going a little long, I just slid in. Having one of those days? Anybody ever had one of those days? I'm having one, just wrote a profound thing for everybody, and I realized that it's about 30 minutes long and I only got 15. So I'm going to start to chop it up. Red Denton, I'm the founder of the not Tom Wolf. There. Okay, so I'm here to share with you a little bit about my story and a little bit about recovery program. I, like Tom, in long-term recovery. I operate a nonprofit that we serve the homeless. We started out called the Karma Box Project. We started out as free community pantries that we put all over northern Nevada. We do homeless outreach with the idea of getting people off the streets. We also do pre-employment programming where I go into camps on the streets. I offer people gift cards for helping me clean up the camp, and we get them enrolled into programs and we start to know who's on our streets. We also do business outreach. We work around the shelter. I operate a non-congregant shelter, and around the shelter a lot of businesses suffer. So we have a good neighbor policy where we have outreach providers that when businesses are having issues with any homeless issues, they give us a call and we come out and see what we can do to help. We also have outreach around the shelter. We're opening up an ILP in March, a walk-in ILP, which is absolutely necessary, like Tom said. Today we're going to talk about one of my re-entry program called GRIT. It stands for Grow, Refine, Integrate, and Thrive. I'm going to share a little bit about my stuff. Where do I go? Okay. That's me in 2014. That's about 2 months before I got locked up. I was facing 5 to 7 years in prison. When you're living on the streets, like dying and going to prison is just part of the gig. You're either going to die or you're going to go to prison. Prison is like your retirement plan. When you're living on the streets, I wasn't even worried about it. I knew it was part of the gig. It's just when. And the judge offered me drug court, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to take it or not, but given the option, sure. If I fail, worst case scenario, I'll go to prison. So it was a good gig. But during the wait for the bed, which is about 8 months, I had a bit of a paradigm shift. And it started with a few things. It was, I started to separate myself from the rest of the group. I wasn't hanging out with anybody. I started exercising a lot, mainly because I realized that I was 34 years old. I had kids that I hadn't fathered. I had 2 kids I hadn't fathered. I hadn't had a job or a real career in 10 years. And so I'm thinking to myself, I gotta be the dumbest 34-year-old out there. And if I'm gonna be the dumbest guy out there, I'm gonna be the sharpest idiot out there. So I just really focused on my body, working out, and in that time also, my granny, who had previously cut me off, which was absolutely necessary, know that when you burn the granny bridge, you messed up. Granny was my riding guy, she shut it down. But when I went to jail, instead of putting money on my commissary, my granny started to send me books. So I started to read about mindfulness, I started to learn how to meditate. I was learning about universal law and all the things, and I was getting prepared to go to the outside world. And in this project, I'm going to cut through this. That's me graduating from, that's me with my kids before I ended up getting locked up. And so I'm going to move to the learning portion of it. It was important that this learning that happened. I read a lot of stuff. In the process of reading things, I read something from the Dalai Lama, and he said, you're not entitled to the fruits of your labor. The only thing you're entitled to is your labor. And that really resonated with me because I panicked about getting in recovery. There was a lot of panicking happening because there was so much that had to change. Who's ever tried to diet before? Raise your hands. How'd you do? That's just rocking, right? We're trying to change everything. And so there was this panic when I read that. I knew that it was important that if you believe that the only thing you're entitled to is your labor, then just work. Just go to work. And everything that comes, all the things are a gift. And so I focused on working and aggressively learning as much as I could. And one of the books I read was called The Misfit Economy, right? We have this idea that when we're on the streets, and when you're on the streets that long, you haven't really developed any real skills, kind of. In the book, it talks about people in the margins, right? Living in the margins, you develop some skills. And for example, the 3 R's. Things you learn are you're resourceful. I wake up broke, but still manage to get high all day. I'm resilient. I got a lifestyle that beats me every day, and I still keep showing up. And I'm a risk taker. My whole life is risk, and I keep taking these calculated risks, which is why I'm still alive. And so I knew that if you could transform these things, right, I could actually be somebody. I could be successful in another way. I just had to utilize the skills that I learned from being a drug addict on the street. One of the books that I read that really resonated with me was so we all agree that addiction is a disease, and that makes me panic. How do you shake this disease? And Dr. Joe Dispenza talked about what he talks about. It's spontaneous remission. You guys make me nervous, I forget this. That's me shaking responsibility. Anyway, so he talks about spontaneous remission. And spontaneous remission is where they have all these people who were diagnosed with terminal illnesses, and they were given a time to die, and they didn't die in that time. And they actually, their illness went into remission, so they gathered them all together. They asked them a bunch of questions, they interviewed them, and all of them had 4 things in common. One was that they knew that their negative thoughts got them to where they're at, so they started to live more positive lifestyles. I want you guys to try something for me real quick. On the count of 3, stop your heart. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. What if somebody fell out right now? You're like, no! So you can't stop your heart. Whether you like it or not, something divine loves you enough to keep blood pumping through the grid, keeps your lungs full of air, and something loves you enough to keep you alive, and you just got to trust that. If you're still here, you have a purpose. And they all believe that. 3 was meditation, or losing track of time and space, doing something you love, or you lose track of time and space, like could be meditation, playing the piano, basketball, whatever that looks like for you. And 4 was they all knew that they had to reinvent themselves. When I was on the streets, every time I got clean, I just wanted my little fat 3-year-old son back, I wanted my wife back, I wanted my job, right? And you'll never get that stuff back. You have to know that in order to succeed, you have to reinvent yourself. You have to become another person. I was always haunted in recovery, and Tom can attest to this, by a fried egg. Anybody remember the commercial? There's this man in the park with an egg. He's like, this is your brain, and he has a pan, and he fries it, and he asks you if you have any questions, and as a kid, you're like, I don't. I do not have questions, you're gonna fry your brain, and he's right. You do drugs, you're gonna fry your brain. But what they don't tell you, and that way, every time I got clean, I would think about this fried egg, and be like, I've done a lot of drugs. It was hopeless. I might not be able to get it back. What they don't tell you about is BDNF, brain-derived neuropathic factor, that is a protein in your brain that helps produce with neuroplasticity, right? So pretty much saying you can grow a new brain. You don't even need the old brain. This is how I look at it. Like, old brain, whatever, new brain. And so, and you do that through learning and exercise. Learning and exercise. And what really motivated me was knowing that I can grow a new brain, I can become a new person. I really focus on part of my recovery and everything I do is I every day take my meds. Mental health, focus on exercise. I try to improve my diet, my system, do about diet and sleep. I'm learning how to sleep. So when about 2 years ago, I started a program working with treatment centers. I go to sober living houses, treatment centers. I bring folks to a gym where we incorporate all these things. We do a yoga class, mind and body connection. We learn to breathe in there. We have practice, meditation. We do boxing. Boxing isn't as much about punching people. I mean, But it's also about cardio, coordination, self-confidence. You learn how to, when you're boxing, you're really tense, right? You're guarded. And when you're in this ring, the one thing they yell at you is breathe, breathe. It teaches you how to slow down your heart. And if you can do that in the ring, you can do that on the outside, right? There's a lot of things with traffic, work, people that are going to put you in a condition of fight or flight. If you can learn how to breathe past that, it's extremely valuable. We have our folks bring their kids with them. Because a lot of people that we work with are reunification programs. We let people kind of work at their own pace. We do what we call the aggregation of marginal gains, to where if you normally would train this hard, I just ask you 1% what you normally do, and this is what helps folks grow past that. We also have a component where we volunteer. We know that when we're addicts, active addicts, we've done a lot of damage to ourselves, to our families, to the community, and it's not just that we're doing this as a kind of day going out and cleaning up. It's important that you give back to the community. You did some damage, you owe it. That's how I look at it. I don't want to point fingers like you owe it, Dad. But kind of, right? If you want to be balanced, we have groups where we process, we come together, and we connect with folks. It's really cool to learn how to develop relationships with people where the drug isn't like the centerpiece. And I do competitive boxing too. I am a competitive boxer, and so I train folks that are in recovery to go out and fight. And I'm telling you, it's great. These people perform so well. When you train as if someone's coming for you, you train a little harder. If you know someone's trying to punch you, right? You train a little harder. These are stats. We all know stats. We know, right? You don't have to, I almost didn't put this up. You don't have to, look up stats to know that it's good that exercise helps you in recovery. You feel less anxiety, depression. Individuals who exercise 50 regularly are 50% more likely to maintain long-term sobriety. And nutrition, all the nutrition stats. Nutrition is proven to minimize PAWS, which is post-acute withdrawal symptoms, which is extremely helpful because this is what causes us to relapse. So we did a program, and I'm going to share with you our program that we did. What you see is a menu that we created. A lot of folks that I work with are straight from the streets of prison, and so they have food stamp cards, which makes it very difficult to eat well. And so part of this, a lot of our guys are on 7-Eleven diets. They just go to the corner store to get their food, and they only have $200, so in 2 weeks, they're out food stamps and they're eating from the food pantries. Well, what we did was we created a menu, a healthy menu, and picked all the items for them with all the nutritional facts, all the things. We created a menu for them to where they could go to Trader Joe's, give them a receipt, and have all these items brought to them. This is a whole month worth, under $200. So 1 week, we gave them the menus, we told them to go to Trader Joe's and get it, and then the next week we told them to report to us. Next week they came and they said that they didn't do it. And I'm like, well, why didn't you do it? And they thought they didn't do it because they thought that Trader Joe's was too bougie. So I was like, where do you shop? They said, Walmart. So we made one from Walmart. And then everybody met us there. When the first of the month, when our cars were loaded, we had about 15 shopping carts, maybe 20, a whole lineup. We were dining them through, and when we got to the produce department, all of them stopped. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. And nobody wanted, you're going to show them where the things were. Nobody wanted to do it because they didn't trust it yet. So what we did was like, all right, you go fill up your shopping cart with what you think makes the most sense, and then bring it back, and we'll go over it. And that was interesting. We had one woman come back with 28 honey buns, which earned her a nickname. So what we had to do was we negotiated 28 honey buns, 26 honey buns, and 2 croissants, right? It's these minutes, and this has to happen over the course of time. You're going to have more success getting someone off the fentanyl if you work to get them to change the diet. And if you want to do that, you have to put in the work, right? If somebody only puts in 20, you might have to put in 80, right? How much of it is us and how much is them? Not that they can't be shouldn't be held accountable, but there's some, what are you willing to do? And how much of what you do is going to move them a little bit forward, right? We're going to, like I said, the activation of one games, you just want to nudge somebody a little closer to the finish line. So my nonprofit, 80% of the folks that work for me are from the streets of Reno or surrounding areas. I work with folks right when they're in the program, that are in programming. We work with them a few months after they've been in programming, and then when they get into the GRIP program, when they start working out, then they come work with us. It's a great gig because they're held accountable by the house, right? But they're also learning skills. They have a sense of purpose, the peer support, the connection. We're integrating them back into the community. It's been extremely successful. This is our most recent group. This was taken last week, actually. And as you can see, we got a really good group of folks. I believe there should be more programs like this in the country that are really starting to do the work, working with the folks in the context of their living, integrating them back into the community. I know one of the most terrifying things when I was homeless, when I was locked up, was outside. I wasn't worried about prison. I'm a good prison. I'm great. The outside world was terrifying. Remember they would tell you that you have to erase your phone, because everybody in your phone, all the bad contacts in your phone, erase them. Everybody on my phone. It was only my granny left, my grandma. They won't cut me off too. And then when you get out, right, and you have none of these people to contact, after a little while, you're lonely. I remember being lonely. And it wasn't that I wanted to hurry up and get high, because I knew that I had enough time sober in jail, but I was lonely a lot of the times. And I would rather somebody lie to me and say they love me than never hear I love you at all. Just lie to me, man. And so we would move towards these things that you know are bad for you, but you just went there because that's where you're connected. That's all you know. And so it's important to have a group to go to, a group to support you when you get out. I want to share one more gig with you. That's a picture of me and my kids a couple years ago. Those are both my boys. When they came to me after I got out, I got sorted out, I got my kids back, I took a selfie, down again, and posted it, I was real proud of myself. And these kids were crazy. They didn't sleep, they fought all the time, they never showered. And so I took them to the therapist, but there was something wrong with them. And she took one of the kids in for 15 minutes, talking to him. She took the other boy in for 15 minutes, talked to him. And then she's like, Dad, come on, I was rehearsing you're not going to put my kid on a radio speech. And she was like, Dad, it's you. What are you talking about? She said, listen, man, those ain't your roommates. Those are your kids. You got to get them rules. You got to put structures in place. But in fact, she said, those aren't your kids. She said, those kids don't belong to you. Right? Those kids belong to the world. And if you don't prepare them for the world will give them back to you. The world will give them to the streets. The world will give them to an institution. Or the world will give them to a morgue. Your only job is to prepare these kids for the outside world. And that totally shifted me. I started taking classes, doing all the things. But as providers, my only job in this business, working in recovery and working in homelessness, is to prepare these folks for the outside world.